Regen. So, gut. Und Action. Und jetzt was?
Dark Moon is based on a small film which we did when we were kids. At that time I discovered the great science fiction movies of the 70s and 80s, you know, Alien, Star Wars and Predator. And when I read the book of Robinson Crusoe, I just fell in love with the idea of blending that story with the science fiction genre. So, you know, the sailboat kind of became a starship, and the guy would not strand on an island, but on a remote planet. So we knew we wanted that place to be scary and spooky and all of that. So we kind of chose the title Dark Planet, yet I just thought that was the most random thing you could have thought of. So I was like, let's make this thing a moon, Dark Moon. Yeah, we kind of had fun doing this back then. It was kind of cowboys and Indians with a camcorder, but you know, as a young filmmaker, I was never quite happy with how it turned out. So I finally decided in 2005 to rewrite the original story of Dark Moon, and it got changed a lot. Yeah, so far it had just been this guy walking around in the woods, but I wanted to produce a serious film about a young man called David who's used to a high-tech world, who just clashes with this totally primitive and an alien environment, and who's forced to survive there with absolutely no clue as to where the hell he is and if he can ever escape from there, you know?
Hallo! Ist hier irgendjemand? Bin ich denn ganz alleine auf diesem verfickten Felsen?
But you can't just start the film there. Just like in Titanic, it needs a build. You have to care for the guy once the ship hits the iceberg. You know, in this case, it's probably an asteroid, I suppose. And, you know, Niels Rubel just does a great job portraying that guy that you're gonna stick with for an hour. And, you know, in order to make the scenes more believable, I took reference from my own life and how I grew up kind of having arguments with adults and authority. So I kind of put that into the writing of it.
Die Kursänderung. Was soll das Ganze?
Wenn die Firma sagt, flieg da lang, dann fliegen wir da lang.
So einfach ist das also. Fiberstrecke sollen wir plötzlich das Ruder rumdrehen und durch den Bermuda-Sektor steuern. Einfach so. Ohne jeden Sinn.
Es gibt einen Sinn. Wir sparen 8 Tage damit.
The first chapters are really about a young pilot who's trying to survive in a cold future society. And I wanted to make damn sure that when it comes to the climax of the story, we have come to know the protagonist. Yeah, the production was not an easy undertaking, especially, I guess, because it's feature length, and I'm not only the director, but also the producer, director of photography, and the production designer. And there was a lot of construction going on. I mean, the set design part of the project could never have reached that scale without the local school letting us use a couple of their rooms in the holiday seasons. So yeah, I'm really grateful that they gave us that access. I mean, at one point we built a fake cave there, which I think was 11 meters in diameter. So we gathered a team of 9 guys who worked on the thing in shifts over the course of 2 weeks, so it will be done just in time. I mean, it really was a tight schedule, and we ended up having only a couple of days left to shoot all the sequences in there, and of course we had to tear it down before the end of Easter holidays. And we didn't only use wood, paint, and paper, but a lot of metal garbage and junk that we could find, really, to support the idea of this used future look, which I think is essential for a horror film set in outer space. Right now we've entered post-production, and we're scheduled for a release around winter. And, you know, besides quite a number of visual effects which need to be completed, we still have a lot of sound editing and musical scoring to do. And yeah, luckily I found a very talented composer from Sweden who scores the movie.
Well, I've been making music since I was 13, really. I was a guitar player then. Well, I still am a guitar player, actually. But I've also been studying classical composition and arranging for a few years. But it wasn't until 2001, I think, that I started my music production firm. And so you see, I have a pretty diverse background when it comes to music. I've been doing music for Swedish television, American network channels like the CBS and the Travel Channel, and I've been scoring some feature films too. I do have a preference for science fiction films, so I was very happy when the director of Dark Moon approached me to make music for his film. I thought it was a very promising project, so I was happy to engage.
Of course, Dark Moon takes place in a fictional world, and there's just no way around establishing that world without visual effects, be it CGI or miniatures. But, you know, I want to make it as real as possible, which is why I always prefer the real thing to a computer-generated image. I mean, after all, we're building sets because of that. So, you know, I try to keep the FX part of the movie down on a reasonable level, because after all, I'm not telling a story about a spaceship. You know, I'm telling a story about the people in the spaceship.